Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to make a quick video to talk about how to prepare the payload for REST API in inbound integrations, because this is one of the most commonly used scenarios when it comes to the Oracle Integration Cloud. So let's have a look at this scenario. The requirement is that we're going to use the REST API to create item cycle count definitions in Fusion. If we go to the Oracle documentation, there's something called cycle count definitions, and here is create definitions. So this is a REST API that we're going to use for the creation of cycle count definitions. And if we have a look at its payload, and this is a payload I've tested with the Postman. So there are some fields here. They provide the basic information for this cycle count definition, like, for example, cycle count name and which inventory organization it belongs to, and the start date, frequency code, stuff like that. And this is called a definition header. And apart from this, in the cycle count definition, it can also have items, many items. Okay, so when I was testing this payload, what I found is if the number of the items included in this definition is, let's say for example, greater than 500, and then this API 99 out of 100 times it fails. Okay, so in this documentation it doesn't tell us this, and there's nothing we can do about this. So what I'll do is that in this project I'll split this into two-step process. The first step is that I will just create the cycle count definition header without any items, and then I will add the items, try to add the items into this definition. And in the Oracle documentation, there's something called items. If we scroll down a little bit and create items, and this is the API to add the items into one existing definition. But the problem of this API is that you can only use this to add one item into the definition at a time. Okay, so obviously it doesn't work for us. So in this case, what we're going to use is that we're going to utilize the batch actions to include maybe a few hundreds of items at a time into the definition. Okay, so if we go to the payload, this is a payload I've tested with the Postman. This one is to add the items, quite a few items, into this existing definition at a time. And this is the ID, this is the definition header ID. And those are the item numbers. So by using this one, we can sort of control the performance of this REST API and how to pump the data into the Fusion. So let's say, for example, every time we include 300 items into this payload using the batch actions to submit the data into Fusion. And the next time we submit 300 items again. Okay, so for example, if there are 1,000 items that need to be added into one definition, we split these 1,000 items into 4 groups. So the first three, for the first 3 groups, each of them has get 300 items, and the fourth one is get 100 items. And we will loop this. We submit this payload one by one, and every time we wait for another 10 seconds, and then we process the next one. Okay. So this is the background information. Let's go back to the OIC and database to have a look at how this is done. So before we submit the data into the Fusion using the OIC integrations, what we can do is that we can use the database to prepare the payload. So let me show you how this works. Okay, we can use the stored procedures to prepare the payload. Let's say, for example, here for the definition header. Okay, I've got a table to store the payload, and if we move to the right, and it's got a payload column. The type of this column is CLOB. Okay, so we can store the JSON, the payload, in the form of JSON into this column. And for the items that need to be included into this definition, let's say, for example, 1,000 items, I've split them into 4 groups, okay? And for each one, it's get a payload. So in the OIC, what we're going to do is I'll loop and process these payloads one by one. Now let's go back to the OIC to have a look. So here I'm using the SQL to fetch the payload of the definition header, okay, and then it comes back with this JSON, and then this is integration that I've created separately for the creation of definition. So now I'm triggering this integration, and let's have a look at this map. So the parameter of this integration is stream reference, and why? Because I'm using the so if we go back to the Postman, I'll explain this to you. So normally what we do is that we'll use raw, okay? We use raw and we put a JSON here. This is what we normally do, okay? But in this case, what I'm going to do is that I'll go with the binary. So this file we get from the this JSON we get from the database. It's a stream, okay? And we use it as a binary information and send it to the REST API. So in the Postman, you can test this. You choose binary, and then you upload the file, the JSON file, and you go for this. It should work. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna do. In the definition of this integration, we use define as binary. Okay. And then in the map here, the stream reference it will show up, and what we do here is that the fetch definition payload, this is a SQL. In its response, we get something called payload. It's the name of this column, okay? And here in this expression, what we do is that we will encode this with the base 64, and then we need to put it back to the reference because this is a stream reference. So we use the decode base 64 to reference to convert this back to the reference and then send it to the integration. And after the triggering of this integration to create a definition, we will see if it's successful or it's failed. If it fails, and then we throw the fault, and it goes to the fault handler. Okay. And then after the processing of the definition, and then we can, by using this API, we can get it comes back with the definition header. Okay, and then we can use this header to prepare the payloads of the items. And then the next step, what I'll do is that I'll use the SQL to fetch these payloads for the items and then loop through. And for each payload, I'll use another integration as a separate service, okay, to add the items into this existing definition. So basically, this is how we do this using the stream reference. We prepare the payloads in the database, and then we extract the payloads from the database and use the stream reference and send the information to the REST API and submit to the Fusion. Another way of doing this is actually similar. I'll show you. So this is the second way of doing this. What is different is that when we submit the information using the REST API, let's have a look at this map. The request payload is not a stream reference. It's the traditional way. It's just raw data in the form of JSON. Okay, so this is JSON, and so here what we do is that we extract information using the SQL from the database, and afterwards we get the JSON. Okay, and then we need to transform and then map that to the request payload of this REST API. So in between, there are actually two key steps. The first one is that we write the JSON, and then we read the information. For both, we use the stage file. Okay? So let's check the map of the first one, which is the write JSON, using the stage file. So what we do here is that we use the opaque element in the stage file. And then in this map, we need to encode this using the base 64. And regarding the what exactly is opaque schema, please refer to the Oracle documentation. Now back to the OIC. After the writing of the information to the stage file, in the read file stage file, what we do is that we use the file reference. Okay, so it's very simple. This file reference comes from the write JSON. And then after that, we do the mapping and map this to the request payload of this REST API. To summarize, in this session, I've introduced how to generate the payload in the database and then extract the information from the database and submit the data to the REST API. And there are two ways of doing this when submitting the data to the REST API. The first one is to use the stream reference, and the second one is to use the stage file in the OIC. Thanks for watching.